All right, we'll call the planning commission meeting to order. This meeting and all meetings of this committee are open to the public. Proper notice has been posted, given to the press in accordance with Wisconsin statute, so citizenry may be aware of the time, the place, and the agenda of the meeting. Roll call.
Kempf,
Here.
Brunner,
Here.
Annabus,
Here.
Ebert,
Here.
Appleby.
Here.
Patrick is not present.
Okay. Now I would look for a motion to approve the minutes from our regular meeting on December 4th, 2014, and our special committee planning commission meeting on December 15th, 2014.
I will move to accept the minutes of the Plan Commission for December 4th and December 15th, 2014.
I'll second that.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any comments or additions that need to be for the minutes? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Next, we have discussion on a possible action on sign permit for Outagamie County Services at 601 Lake Shore Drive.
So you have a signed permit there. Now, we have talked about conditional use permit, talking about their plans for, to put on like a convenience store, gas station. Those plans are about 90% complete. Now, they've sent me an elevation plan, and it sounds like the gas station is going to happen this summer. One of their hang-ups, or one of the approvals that they've been looking for, is the sign approval. And by city ordinance, they wouldn't be able to just throw up these signs and have them up before their gas station and convenience center is completed. And really, with what they're looking to put up, they're probably not putting up a Citgo sign before there's actually something there. And our sign ordinances wouldn't, really allow that. But what they're looking for is approval on the permit. And with this, they're looking at two signs. One is a price sign that would be 30 feet tall, and that's the sign. It looks more rectangular, and yep, that would be the sign. So they're looking for approval on that sign, and we've worked with them. I think at first they wanted it to be about 36 to 40 feet tall. In that zoning district, it can be 30 feet tall. The building inspector has reviewed this. We'll get to, there's two signs in here. We'll do the first one first. But they're all on one permit, just so you know.
Right.
The building inspector's reviewed it, I've reviewed it. That sign, so when you're looking in your packet, it's the colored sign, appears to conform to what would be required. And again, one of the major modifications they made to that was the 30-foot height restriction. They wanted it to be taller, but 30 feet is where they're at. So
Okay.
that one seems to be good. The second sign, I think at this plan commission and for the last couple of years, we've tossed this around on whether or not a 105-foot high high-rise sign would be allowed in this zoning district. And the short answer is, according to your sign ordinance, it is not. I had worked with the developer, I've been here 2 years, today I think actually, and I've been working with him for 2 years, and I've tried to get my head around how would you be able to get approval for a 105-foot high sign that exceeds the 30-foot restriction, and also the face of the sign, how can you exceed 200 square feet, which is the maximum in that district? The way he could get around it is if he had a variance, and the developer had not indicated to me that he had one, or I should say, my understanding from our conversations was that he likely did not have one. And to be honest with you, when you go by the rules of granting a variance through the Board of Appeals, which we have on file now, we've had a couple hearings now where we started to follow the rules. I don't know in the past if you had followed them the way they should have been, but I can't comment on that. I know that the way we're doing it now is correct. So on those conditions that would be required, basically you get a variance if there's no other way you can have a sign if you're really in a hardship. And hardship is defined pretty strictly, and it's pretty hard to prove that you have a hardship. So long story, a little bit longer, and then maybe to the point, I don't know how they could get a variance for this sign that they're asking for. But looking back through historical records, lo and behold, I believe it's June of 2011, they were granted a variance for this sign.
For this same one, this 105 footer?
Yes, and it's in your packet there. You should have the materials on the notice, the minutes, and a picture of that sign. I think there's even a colored picture of the sign. And the meeting, if you look in the minutes, and I should look off the top of my head, for the length of time it's taken for me just to explain this stuff so far, I don't know how you could prove and ask for and get a variance, but I believe that meeting was over, it was called to order, everything was done like in 4 minutes. So I'm not sure what all went into granting a variance, but a variance has been granted for this sign. So as you look at this sign, legally, they have a variance that would cover your restrictions and basically allow it. Now, you may feel a certain way about that, and I do too, but the reason, so you have a Board of Appeals, they usually look at these things, and there's supposed to be discussion on the hardship, and there's a 3-step test, and
And that, just
Yeah.
to clarify, the Board of Appeals.
is that,
Is to the city of Weyauwega? I mean,
Yep.
Okay, so it's
Yeah.
not something outside of that.
Right,
It's
it's-
still within
yep,
the
it's-
government of
yeah.
the city.
Yeah, good question. And it's basically, it's a 5-person citizen panel. And what they're supposed to do is, if me as the zoning administrator, if somebody feels that I make an error in determining what the code is, people can, the Board of Appeals, they can appeal to that board and say, we don't think that the administrator or the council or whoever had made a proper
Due
decision.
diligence or whatever.
Right, and that's why they're sort of an independent body. They're appointed by the city council, but it's an independent public body. And so their job is pretty straightforward. There's really no room for opinions there at all, because usually when you're reviewing decisions or you're reviewing whether there's a hardship, state law lays out specific factors you're supposed to look at. And as I look at those factors, that's where I don't know how you could make a successful case for a variance, but because it's been granted, and because it was back in 2011, my understanding is that, they have a variance, and those restrictions cannot be considered by you guys to say, I will not approve this sign because blank, because the variance essentially clears the deck of those height and space concerns.
But is there no, like, once a variance is granted, there's no time frame for that variance to be?
It's indefinite, and it
So
stays with the
whenever-
property. So for indefinitely, this piece of property, no matter who owns it, there's a variance for a 105-foot high sign with exceeding the space on how big it can be. That's indefinite as long as the property exists. So on our end, yes, it was granted in 2011, but essentially it goes on no matter who owns it and forever how long. It's very strange, but that's,
There was proof of hardship from the company, from the co-op.
To me, it doesn't sound like that ever really got.
Was there any proof of hardship? Because other
'Cause that
things
would
have
have
been
happened
proven
during that.
invalid.
yeah, it would have been, so, and the reason why, and I don't know, because number one, I wasn't here. Part of why we film the meetings is to keep a record too now, but, for what it took me to explain what they want for a sign, in that amount of time, the meeting was called to order, roll call, motion, and then it was approved. So I would imagine there was very minimal discussion. And I'm not saying boo-hoo on anybody except, a decision was made and then that decision affects your review of the sign. So my opinion on whether it was handled right or not, really at this point doesn't matter because it's been approved.
No, there can be no overrule of that decision, and the council didn't have to approve.
There's usually a time, the appeal from the Board of Appeals goes right to circuit court. So this sounds really overbearing, but if I feel, or the council, or anybody would feel like, I think it's a 30-day window from the decision. If you apply for variance and you feel like they made the wrong decision, you can apply right to circuit court for review. If the city feels like that decision was made incorrectly, the city can appeal to circuit court too. Now, usually when you're in court, it gets pretty ugly, but usually there's a 30-day window. And on our notice of, we have a notice to applicants for a variance that we send out, and we tell them, and it's been since I started that we've kind of put it together, copied what other communities do, but we do the same thing. And we've laid out, here's the standard you have to meet. And we make it very clear up front to people. And we've had 2 reviews. One was on the location of a garage in town. And it didn't meet the standard, and the Board of Appeals didn't vote to grant it. Now, the people involved are really unhappy about it, but the way the Board of Appeals is functioning now, I feel like it's appropriately functioning for what it's supposed to do. Now, that doesn't mean that they do my bidding. I'm more concerned that what they're looking at is what they're supposed to be looking at. In this case, not to make light of it again, but it looks like, I think it was like 4 minutes the meeting had started, and I think I have the minutes in there, and you might be able to look at when was it called to order and when did it adjourn, and
5 to 5:05.
5 minutes.
So with all of that, and sounding like there's,
Yeah.
would be a bit of a challenge to try and go back, let's just talk about, does it make sense? I somewhat understand them being on the highway with the hill, wanting people as they come over the hill to be able to see the sign before the exit. I kind of get that, right? I also highly doubt that anywhere else in the city, anybody else is wanting a 100-foot sign, or would even know that that's the rule once it goes up. They're used to seeing these big signs along the highway.
Yep.
So I personally don't necessarily have a problem with it, but it does circle back around to that sign ordinance that when we get to looking at that again,
Yeah.
we might want to say, all right, if you're off the highway by X number of feet, it does go up to make that,
Yep.
that makes sense, because, the grocery store in town ain't gonna put a 100-foot sign up along their store. I mean, they're just not gonna do it, so I think the risk of it setting a precedent and people screaming and wanting to circle City Hall as to what the heck this is, don't even know, they're just gonna assume, oh, yeah, I see big signs like that on the highway all the time.
Yeah.
That's just kind of my 2 cents. I don't know if it's worth,
Yeah.
creating a battle.
And I'll just clarify too. So it wasn't done willy-nilly on asking for a 105-foot sign. There's a lot of work I think that they put into it ahead of time, and maybe that was taken into account too, where the committee just came up and said, oh, okay, well, this makes sense. Now, for a little bit of background, and because I'd like to keep this as short as we could, but that's my understanding is the 105 feet was derived because the company actually had a helium balloon with some kind of a mechanism that they raised up on site where they want to put a sign. And somebody then went down as far as they wanted to go, down 10 to the east, and at whatever point the balloon was able to be seen, the intent
They
was
said,
right. And to compare what they want to put up at, I think it's 96 and 110 in Fremont. There's a Citgo, used to have a Taco John's, there's a Subway. This is the same company. And there is a sign just like this one off of, I mean, it's on 96, so it's a little bit off the road there, but it's not unreasonable, I don't think. It's just that our sign ordinance wouldn't allow it normally. They did get a variance, it was granted, and then you move from there. Now, I don't know that it's unreasonable because I think there was some good work put in, or there was some work where they said, well, here's how we
the
could
logic behind it.
justify it. The problem with the Board of Appeals is that figuring out how high that balloon needed to be is more of a convenience issue because it would be convenient for a sign to be really tall. The problem is that a hardship? And that's what the Board of Appeals looks at. Now, I'm more inclined to think that a sign is a sign is a sign on the site, but conveniently, if people saw it further away, that would be one
Did I
thing.
misunderstand? I thought the Board of Appeals, isn't that within that same 30 days that can occur, or can it happen anytime?
30 days. It would have
So
to be
we're
30 days.
past that point too, right, where that's even
Right.
a possibility.
Yep. Yeah, but more to point out the difference in what the Board of Appeals probably
Sure.
should look at, what they're looking at now, and it's, you know, they're asking for something that it appears that they meet all of the qualifications for, and with that, and so the locations there, the price sign is going to be located just south of where the old gas station, that little brick building is there.
Mhm.
It's going to be right there, off of the right of way, but in their property. And then the very tall sign is going to be, they did send me a site plan, but it wasn't very
Is
clear.
it where the sign is sitting there now? That
No, if you look at, so where the subway driveway is, the westernmost,
There was a pole
it'll
in
be
there, but
straight.
Last year, I thought sometime we talked about that pole.
Yep, yep, and that's when
there was a
we,
height thing there too, and I honestly don't remember all the details, and I thought maybe Bob brought it up about, was there something with the state,
yeah.
with it being a state highway, and was there, I thought
Yep.
that came up.
Exactly. So what they were looking for then was a sign strictly for subway. And the state says when you put up signs there, they have to be 50 feet from your parking lot. And so when he wanted to put, or they wanted to put a sign on the highway, they were across the grass field. They were more than 50 feet away. So it was something that probably wouldn't have been approved. But before that, the city didn't tell them, oh, you need to follow the DOT. Well, we did. We didn't hold it though. What we held it on was they needed to let you know more specifically where was it going to be located. Were you going to be able to locate it there? Now the difference with this sign is that with a gas station, they're paving the rest of that field. And so then they'll be within 50 feet of their parking lot.
Okay.
So the request would be to approve the sign permit for Auto Gaming Co-op Services, and what they're looking for then is the two price signs. They will then have to go through for a building permit and address the building and all of that separately, but right now they're looking for approval on the signs, and it appears that what they have is in order.
And this, did you say this one here would be more by the corner?
Yes, by the northeast corner of the property along
Yeah.
Main Street?
And that's okay to have that much signage
Yes.
along with this overdoing the signs on the building? Because that's overdone right now from what I remember.
Yeah, and it was related to, so they're on a corner
Signs.
lot,
Yeah.
and they only have one business. What they're going to have with a convenience store is more than one business, and they're all gonna be on the same lot. So the signage on the building will be addressed when they come through with the site plan and when they take a look at what the building's gonna look at, but right now their permitting is for just those two signs.
So can we just approve the one sign and not the other sign because of the
You can
too much
approve.
signage until something is picked up with that and not the 150-foot sign?
No, you should be in order for it. Your approval for the permit, my understanding is that with the building permit, they still have to address the electrical with the building inspector. And so your approval would be for the height, the space, and quite honestly, if they don't build the gas station, they would then have signs that aren't to what their intent was for that property. You know, if they've got, like I said, a Citgo sign and they're not selling gas there, that would technically be an off-premise sign because there is no gas station there. So,
Right, because I'm
Yeah.
thinking if they don't build that
yeah,
and they put the 150-foot sign up there, well
Yep.
then now they can start hanging the subway shingle on there and
right.
the
That would be
pizza
one of the
shingle.
last things to go up. I mean, if the project did go
You would
through,
think
well,
so.
then no
You would,
signs.
you would think
But-
it would be.
Yeah.
But if you've been in this as long as
I
I
mean, you've seen
have,
all kinds of stuff,
yes.
yeah.
So we could
That could
be a
build
restriction.
You
This
could
building
condition
was
it
gonna
if
be
you'd
built
like.
10 years ago.
that it's contingent on them building the gas station.
You could say that.
You know, that we approve that request or variance or whatever we're gonna do there, contingent on the gas station actually going up.
Right. It could go up
We
at
can
a
do that.
certain stage of the project,
We
you
really
know.
haven't seen a final of the gas station. You know, what they're gonna
Yep.
build there. I mean, I've been hearing it for many years and it's not happening.
Yep. There is a request that came out of Public Works. Public Works on Monday made a request to get our city engineer to start working on the infrastructure upgrades. And they had conditioned that on, if this doesn't go through, that the developer reimburses the city for all those costs. And on my understanding, the developer was told that there were conditions on us getting going, because it sounds like, quite honestly, I think as soon as spring breaks, they want to be digging on their end. We would have to be digging on our end. But there's a lot of approval that needs to get done with infrastructure and a lot of things. But they want to get the engineer moving, and we're conditioning things already to say, if you don't do this, then you need to pay or reimburse us. With the sign, if you're looking at, it's approved contingent on this gas station or the development happening, you can do that. Because then if the gas station doesn't happen, well, then this is,
And even you put it in or something just to maybe go off of what you were saying, that, so they throw it up and then 5 years from now, we're still waiting for the gas station to come up. That even put in there, that's also contingent on that gas station going in within 12 months of the sign going up, otherwise it takes time back down until you're ready to put the gas station up. I mean, I think that's fair and reasonable and everything else, but there's a little clause in there is that, you know, you don't just get your Subway sign and then say, I'm not gonna build the gas station anymore. No, sign's up, sorry.
mhm. Yep.
And at least there's some way to come back after that sign being up in 12 months that, hey, either build a gas station or take it down until you put it up.
Yep. Yeah, and so if that would happen, not to pull out a hypothetical, but if they would put up the signs, and if the project doesn't go through, the intent would be that we wouldn't have signs before they're digging or building, but in that case, they'd end up with non-conforming signs, because they'd have signs
The
for.
blacktop isn't there, right? I mean,
Right.
They're not gonna blacktop
Right.
the rest of that.
So we deal with,
Area,
the
it's not gonna be a
enforcement
gas
of
station.
signs, yeah.
I think there's small risk in there, and if we just word it correctly, that there's
Yep.
an out for them to take it back down.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, because and the other thing is can they put that sign up and later on say, well, we decided now we don't want to put up a gas station. We're gonna put up, and then all of a sudden that sign fits them, and that's, what, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. So these are signs for a gas station. If you want to condition it and say to approve the sign permits
For the purpose.
for gas
intended.
station signs,
Yep.
and with the condition that if the gas station isn't built,
Sign.
or you're conditioning that they're approved
Or-
when the gas station is built, or convenience store, or whatever that language would be.
I'm okay with that too.
Mhm.
That might be better than giving them a year after, just say,
Oh,
when
yeah.
you build it, put it up.
I mean, I would
Up until
not,
then, you don't need it up,
Yeah.
right?
I would like to see the building 2/3 completed somewhere in there before it's even erected. There's no reason to, before that.
I'll make a motion then that we, how do I say that? Make a motion that we
Recommend approval of.
recommend approval of the sign permit to Outagamie County Services, 601 Lakeshore Drive, in contingency with the gas station, that it being a gas station sign, and with the gas station being built,
Constructed. Yeah.
that the sign could be approved at that time. If not, no sign.
I'll second that.
Okay.
And then is there, not, oh, we got a motion and a second. Any other questions or comments?
Go ahead.
Was there, could we have it read, please?
Sure.
Then I might have a question.
Yeah, so you're looking for the motion to be reread?
Mhm.
Yeah, to recommend approval of sign permit for Outagamie Co-op Services, 601 Lakeshore Drive, for gas station signs, contingent on gas station being built.
You may want to say sign as it appears complete, you know what I mean? Instead of just gas station, because if that comes off, you know,
Yeah.
as the sign appears for the two purposes, that it's there for? Is
Yeah.
there any way you wanna reword that?
And those, so, well, here's the thing, so the application itself has information, those two pictures are considered part of the application, so what you're approving is what
The
is before you there.
Yeah,
So them two signs will be stapled to that and
Yep.
in the minutes for later.
Yep, those are part of the application, so what they're asking you for is to build those two.
and that's, yeah.
So according to the diagrams that we have in front of us, that's what we're voting
And
on.
I'd
Yep.
rather hear it worded like that than to say a sign for the gas station.
Yes.
If
I mean,
you
if
could
you wanna go off
reword
of
that,
how
or
it's
if you
listed
wanna,
Here you got agenda item number 3, page 2, and agenda item number 3, page 3. Right?
In the attachments,
These
yeah.
two.
Yes, so the attachments,
And then it even brings it back a little bit closer to what we saw.
right.
So we don't have to describe that, we're talking about the 105-foot sign because it's in the diagram, it's in the.
It's part of the application.
Application.
Yeah, and so if you approve that application, they can't come and build something different because that's not what's approved. Does that make sense? They're applying to do those two, and because they give you pictures, they're saying, this is what we're asking
This is
for.
what we're doing.
So if they don't put that up, then they have a potential issue then. But, you know, unless that happens, they don't,
But then if they wanted to do something different, then they just have to do the whole permit, sign permit over
Over
again.
again.
Right.
If they wanted to change it.
right, and if they don't build the sign, I believe it's within a year, then the sign permit expires too. So they'd have to come back to you if they don't build, you know. I believe it's a year, I'd check that, but for now, you know, their intent on my end is that it sounds like they're gonna build this summer, so.
Was there going to be something in the motion regarding what you were talking about, Mike, with, or Bruce, with the station, you know, 2/3 completed or something?
I'd like to
that?
see that if you could word that, sign not to be erected till 2/3 of project, plus minus,
Okay.
or until the building is erected and,
Substantially completed.
yeah, and things are well on its way, till the building is erected and progress is steady.
You know what I could do is make a note of that and then just confirm with the city attorney on whether that's something you can do in there, you know, or what the regulation would be on. Can you
Because-
say wait till 2/3 and then how do you measure that? And,
Well, that's, I
you
mean,
know, yeah.
until the building is,
I don't think they,
Erected.
I don't think they would erect it unless the building was, because it does state that there's electrical and something else that was going to it, so.
Yep, and they need a
They
power
have
source,
to have
yeah.
they have to have a place to start to bring that electrical to it.
that might come separate from even a different direction, we don't know, but it may not come through the building, but we don't know. It might come from the same, yeah.
Yeah,
It doesn't
would have
matter,
to.
that
So-
part of it.
Yeah, and I think, again, get something from the lawyer, but something that might be a little bit easier to determine. I guess my gut tells me that if they go through all the preparation for
Right.
the ground itself, and if it just said, sign not to be erected until building construction starts,
Yep.
you know, the blacktop's probably gonna, well, they're gonna start pouring footings. I can't believe if they start pouring footings that they're not gonna continue it. And we already got the out where if it doesn't ever go up, they can take it back down, that maybe that's,
I doubt they even consider putting it up until they're well in motion, it doesn't make any sense from my construction background, so.
maybe it's.
I'm
a
really
moot
not
point.
that worried about it.
Yeah, the basic point is if they build it, it's okay. If they don't build their station, it's not okay, and I think we're comfortable that we can handle that.
They're gonna have to pour the
Footings
pads,
for that.
the pads for those two signs, and so they're gonna have to do that when they start pouring the concrete for the building.
Yeah, and they can do that anytime, but I'm not too concerned, like Steve said, about any of it. If it goes, that's gonna go up at the right time, they're not gonna
Yeah.
hang it out there and spend all that money just hoping they're
Or,
gonna do
you know,
something, that's.
Could it be tied into that blacktop thing? You know, again, it sounds like the sign really technically, legally shouldn't go up until the blacktop is within 50 feet.
Mm-hmm. And that's according to the DOT too,
And
so,
I have a
yeah.
hard time believing they're gonna blacktop it until after the building's done.
Done.
When you start bringing concrete trucks and everything else in there,
That's the last thing,
that's one
yeah.
of the last things is done,
True.
so
True.
honestly, they couldn't even put it up, right?
Well, and I
For
think
ordinance.
the details are that it has to be within the parking lot, and so when I said blacktop, it's because Subway's parking lot, I believe, is blacktop, but it has to be within the parking lot. Well,
Okay.
while you're constructing, you don't really have a parking lot until you do the parking lot, you know, at the very end,
Right.
so. And like you say, you don't pave it till the very end too, and, or, you know, yeah.
So
Okay.
that might be the way to word it there, is just that, you know, until it can be erected after it meets the requirement of the parking,
Parking
50
lot.
feet from the parking lot.
There you go. Which would make sense to them anyway, so,
You would think
Yep.
so.
just for clarification, yeah.
Sure.
You can add that to the motion.
Okay, I mean, it's up to you, because if you condition all of these things, make sure that they really build that, a lot of that's just already in ordinance, and you don't have to repeat the ordinance in your
If
motion.
it's already there.
You know, it's
Right.
already a
No, I
regulation
got
that's
you.
there, so. Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, either way, it's fine, but I think you're good with what you got.
Okay.
And the general idea, and we'll make it noted that if it's built, it's good, if it's not built, it's not good, so,
It's coming down.
Okay.
okay?
So do you have a read back for us?
Yep, I have right now, motion Kemp, second by Ebert, recommend approval of sign permit for Outagamie Co-op Services, 601 Lakeshore Drive, for gas station signs, contingent on gas station being built. So, you cover, the contingency is that it's approved if the station is built.
Yeah, because everything else is already lined up with the ordinances and
Mm-hmm.
procedure.
So-
Okay.
So if they would to put the sign up before it's built, does the city have to?
Then it would be an
Make them
enforcement
take it
issue
down?
then. Then it'd be an enforcement issue, so,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah,
It
we're
just
pretty
allows
sure it
something, and I
won't.
don't wanna cloud it anymore.
And I think
Is
the,
that one contingent on them putting up the gas station?
Yes,
What is too?
yep, they
That's
both
on
would
the
be,
other end.
Both of them.
Okay.
they both would be,
They wouldn't
yep.
come back if they changed it and say, well, now we'll take the Sitco off there, but we wanna put the subway sign. 'Cause
Right,
it-
right, it's still, because as it sits right now,
It has
they're
that.
already
Got it.
maxed out on signage, and I could say at least maxed out on signage for where they
Yeah,
sit now.
Okay.
for what they got, yeah.
Yeah,
Think we'll be able to get them to take all those little blow in the breeze signs down that are annoying?
so that'll be on the next,
Yeah, it starts to look
topic
like
here.
a circus around there.
That'll be on the next topic. Then I've got a comment on that too.
Any other questions, comments on the sign for Outagamie Services? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next, we'll have discussion on existing sign ordinance, businesses invited to comment.
Okay, so we have copies of the sign ordinance that have been printed out for you if you want to take them. I spoke with Mayor
that
Kemp.
thick?
Well,
Oh, I
it's
see.
30, it's copies, so, but it's, I think it's like 26 pages, front and back.
I'd like to have a copy.
So the goal will be, I think we'll have you take these with you. And I spoke with the mayor earlier in the week, and I had said that I talked to the business owners that I'm aware of that would come to you. And what I told them was, feel free to come to the meeting, or pass your concerns along, email, verbally, what have you. Now, I have two of them verbally gave me their thoughts. One of them, the Knitting Nest, had sent me an email on what his thoughts were. And when I talked to the mayor said, well, it might be more appropriate that they're here and they talk to you. So it's up to you guys on whether you want to read this sign ordinance some more and then come back. But I can probably run down really quickly for you. We talked last month a little bit about the idea of signage downtown. Should it not project off of buildings? Should it lay flat against buildings? Some of the businesses in town, that's the issue. They can't project a sign out more than maybe 18 inches. It has to be flat against the building. Well, the Knitting Nest, he would like the ability to mount a sign that sticks out perpendicular to the wall on the building. And on his side, basically what he's saying is, as people turn kind of the bend on Main Street, if it's laying flat against his building, people will already be past him before they could see it. And right now, the zoning district he's in, you can't have a projecting sign that comes out any more than 18 inches. So it's got to be flat on the building. He's asking to project out. Randy Mitchell at Mitchell Automotive, the sign that hangs in his new location, the Acres of America sign, used to be a hanging, swinging sign, and those are not allowed in the district that he's in. So he would like to be able to use that frame, but you cannot have hanging, swinging signs. Now the problem is, when Acres of America or whoever had that before moved out, they removed all of that signage. And what he's left with is the frame. He'd like to use the frame, but technically he can't.
And
The-
Acres of America got by with it because we don't know why.
I don't, yeah, and I don't know.
A variance
It
was
could have been
granted,
approved,
whatever.
and it might be, it might be. And then the brew house next door to City Hall, their issue, one of the issues is that I think they're looking at the laying flat against what can project out into the street. Because right now they have that mural of the trading post with the, they want to replace that. Now temporarily, they have a banner sign up there, which they knew that they'd be coming to talk to you about the sign ordinance, and right now, what they have there is not their long-term solution and shouldn't be, but they want to come and talk to you about, before they spend any money, that's the theme with all of these, before they spend money to do something, they want to make sure that what they do is legal and that, you know, you get the best bang for your buck there. When you talk about those subway signs around the outside of their property, there's those little, they look like lawn darts, those,
Little kite
Things.
signs or something, yeah.
those are, you know, relatively new in the sign world, and new, I mean, they've been around for a number of years, but sign ordinances in general, I called quite a few communities and I asked them about, what do you think about this? And they said, well, we just use them as temporary signs. So like if somebody's got a sale, throw them up.
Right.
Main Street PC, one of the questions he had was that he actually he sells e-cigarettes, and he had installed one of those upside down in front of his building. So where Subway's got them planted in the ground and they're up, he had one where he mounted the top of it to the front of his building, and then it hung down. But because it projects, we had told him, right now you can't have a projecting sign at all. Subway has, it's either 8 to 10 of those that are all through their property, and technically they're not supposed to have those there either. The way that they're supposed to be, or the way most communities treat them, is that it's a temporary sign. And in a temporary sign, you can only have them up for 30 days at a time, and then you need to get a new permit. And those are, I think their intent is to permanently put those signs up there. And we've told them and this developer, as we've talked about the sign ordinance, you know, you really can't have those up there. Now, I have some thoughts on how you deal with that, with those types of arrow-looking signs or whatever they are, but that one you might need some good information from other communities that have handled it, because a lot of them, if we're looking for other communities to see what they did, and other communities, because this is relatively new, they're looking for other communities, and there's just not that many people that are addressing them.
Well, I think we should set the standard then. If there's too much clutter and it looks like a circus, like I said before, get rid of them, because they're not supposed to be there for,
Mhm.
maybe for a special or something. I mean, I'm not gonna let some other community tell us how we want our
Mhm.
front yard to look, you know?
Yep.
Kinda
Yeah.
I'm
pathetic
just-
after a while.
Yeah, I just would like it to be something that can be less subjective and more absolute, so that you don't get into this, well, you know what I mean? And that's what I
Yeah.
think I've kind of wondered about on some of this. Or, you know, other things, just the signs projecting in a perpendicular manner out from buildings on Main Street. I personally don't care, but that's just me.
Mhm.
You know, you do need to get a sense of, well, what do the business want? Is there any opposition within the city? But again, the nice thing about having an ordinance is that it can change, right? It hasn't been updated maybe for a while, so let's take a stab at doing something that makes sense and doesn't allow us to every time just grant a variance,
Right.
you know?
And that was
Sorry.
what my theory when I was talking to Pat about it was, I would just as soon have the business people come to us,
Mhm.
tell us what their thoughts are, so that we're not letting one person, okay, we make the decision, yeah, we're gonna have a signs that can be, well, somebody don't like that because of whatever reason. Come and tell us so we have an idea
Yeah.
why we don't want it. But if the whole business area decides, no, we think that's right, because, take for instance the brew house. You drive past it and then you first see the sign. Maybe that is. Maybe their other thoughts are is that, well, their sign's gonna stick out a little farther than my sign, and they're gonna cover me up as a car's going down the street. Well, then we need to look at that and adjust them all, but I would rather have them come here and tell us what,
I agree,
Right.
Mike, and that's
I
kind of
think
where I
so.
was gonna go, is that
Yeah.
I still wanna read through it just to better
Yeah,
understand
yeah.
it. But honestly, I don't have a problem, I guess, tossing back that you assemble some people that, and you probably got a handful that have, in the last couple of years, that asked about it or whatever, and then you might reach out to others who haven't, and just, hey, we're taking a stab at this, we wanna have it make sense, be fair to everybody.
Yep.
What do you folks think? And then come back with a proposal on changes and, that we could review, and
And that's the way we've talked about this before, that we send out a notice, and maybe even a second notice, so they have the opportunity to say, oh, I missed that, I was gone, to come together and get the input, that times are changing, and not that you're gonna make every single person happy, but I've said for quite a while, I mean, they almost should be on a, not totally, but on a case-by-case thing, like the knitting nest. You said on his building, but his building's recessed way back in.
On his garage, on his, so, but, and he's got 3 buildings on the
Yeah,
property,
and
so
it's
then
just
you look
kinda,
at, yeah,
so
yeah.
why should that be the same as a corner building that
Yep.
sees attention? You know, so it has to be, and if everybody's being treated fairly, then they shouldn't be arguing, you know, and they should come and, so really, I mean, just like each kid in your family is a little different, you know, each situation on location and purpose, so.
right, if he puts that sign on the garage, for instance there, it's not gonna be hit by somebody walking on a sidewalk, because it's not gonna be out that far. It's gonna be mainly people that are in his own yard that, so he's gonna have to make it so that he doesn't hit his head on it.
And the bottom line is we want to be a team to get business and our city to
Right.
keep growing, so let's act like that with bringing people together and let them know that that's how they would act too. It's all together, not fighting and competing, you know, so, small town, that's,
And who knows, maybe they'll get, you know, some advice from each other, just sitting there
Oh, they will,
listening
yeah.
about that, you know. I
one
think
thought
it'll
will
work out.
stimulate another, yeah.
Right.
It'll be a good thing.
Mhm.
Do you think, Pat, you could send something out to all the businesses and?
Yep, yeah, we'll do that, and then what we'll do is we'll say, and like I said, on my end, for a convenience thing, when I contacted them, I said, come to the meeting, if you can't make the meeting, give me, you know, something in writing or talk to me about it, and people did, and then most of them, the ones that gave me something said, well, I can't make the meeting, but we'll put the notice out and say, well, we'd really like you to get here, and if their availability, you know, sometimes it's hard to get all of you guys together because you all have different schedules, and then when you add on the layer of the businesses too, then it's
Well,
tough,
that's
but we'll
where-
try,
and
we'll
That's
try.
where I'm personally okay with, if this happens during the day
Sure,
at City Hall, that group gets together and then try to put together the ideas and maybe even send out, whether it's an email to us or whatever, you know, here's where we're at, we're kind of thinking this, and yet the very final one might be everyone together, but I don't think it has to be
Sure.
just that in order for this to get moving.
yep,
And it might be easier for
Or
the
if we-
business folks to do
or
it
if we
during the day.
pick-
it
Who
could,
knows?
it could,
You know.
Or who knows, if we pick a date, I mean, far enough in advance,
or two, and
Or
say,
two,
come to one or the other.
come to
you know.
one or the other,
Well,
and,
just get the feedback first, it can always be delayed, or, you know,
Yeah.
get the feedback, look at everything that's going on during don't do it after school's out, don't during, you know, of course, through playoffs, you know, whatever.
But I guess my preference would be that the first time all those minds meet isn't in here to try and rewrite this.
Oh,
Right.
yeah, just,
That happens with that group, right?
Right.
We're just there to kind of review it and go over it and say, yeah, does it make sense? Have you covered everything?
well,
But I'm okay with them helping.
all we really need to do is say, come, and give us exposure to what you have now, and if it's fine for you, or why, or how it could be better, more attractive. You know, like, here it is, here's what I'm thinking, here's what could be. But, hey, some say, no, it's fine, just the way it is for me.
It
They
might
may
be-
have an idea for the guy across the street that
And it
doesn't
might be
look
easier
at his
having
own
them
place.
come in first to kind of give us an idea what they want, and then for us to go back then and
go back
review
and-
and discuss how
Right.
we
Yeah,
think.
'cause-
And then if we need the businesses to come back in, we can always invite them to explain or do whatever we have to do. But then at least it gives us an idea what they're all thinking. We don't have to go and rewrite anything, we're just.
Yeah, this is just a reference if something didn't sound right to us. There's no way we
Because
can
that'll give
try to
us time
digest
to
this.
read this, and we'll be kind of knowing what we're thinking or what they're thinking when we do it, and it'll make our lives a little bit easier when we're approaching everything.
You know, it's a bit of happy time, have donuts and coffee and, you know, get a good feeling going and
That's all you ever wanna do.
you might have, yeah, I know, but it works. That's why I go to church. No, I could.
It might sound argumentative here, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm completely convinced that you need to meet with those people first, have them generate their ideas, get
Yeah.
together and talk and do their Indian leg wrestling there.
Sure.
And once you get something that can make sense, then come and present it to us.
You're talking-
I'm gonna read, I mean, I bet you that doesn't happen,
Right.
you don't get all that done for another 3 or 4 months. I just don't
It
think.
might be.
Right?
There's
So-
no reason why we at our own choice can't be there as observers and
If we
maybe a
got time,
comment,
yeah.
because
Yeah.
I want to see it develop, I want to see it, the wheels turn, I don't want to just see a report, so, I mean,
So there's-
I'd want to be
Well, the
there.
report would be a suggestion on how this would change with your feedback on how that all went, where,
Right.
Yeah,
or
right.
their feedback.
And that would go maybe
you know,
to
on-
council, but I'd
I
like
would-
to be there to just see it.
I would like to too, I would like to just hear what all the changes, what
Yeah.
they would like, how they would
And
like
why.
it, what they think and why they think that
Yeah.
it's gonna, what changes are gonna be benefit from
Oh,
it.
yeah,
So
But I guess
just,
what I meant is that unless they get together first,
right.
they don't have that for us. I don't want that to be the first time they
Oh,
get
yeah.
together, we're all doing that here.
No,
That's
no,
my
no,
job.
the whole thing is brainstorming, basically.
Yeah, and then once we get it, then we can go through that.
but just so we're clear though, we're talking about a group of businesses that want changes to the ordinance first,
Yes.
not a committee you're assigning to review the ordinance.
No.
And most businesses
I,
are gonna
I think you
have
wanna
some
maybe do
idea.
both at some point,
Well,
but the problem with,
You know
if you
what
go
I'm
ask.
thinking though
Yeah, go ahead.
too, you know, sorry not to bug
No,
you,
it's
but
fine.
I'm thinking that most businesses kinda have an idea of what they want already and maybe just, you know, don't wanna put it out there, so that legwork they should have done already on their own, on something that they would like to present or would like done for their building. You know, that's what I wanna hear, I wanna hear what changes they wanna make, so like when we're making a decision on things, at least we have an idea and we're all on the same page.
And just so I'm not, no one's missing anything, this doesn't have to be a thing where they think they're coming to get a decision made. This is just to get together
Information.
casually, no decisions to be made. To hear, just like anything, you're doing research. It's a teamwork,
Yeah.
research, however you want to say it, that it's not, don't let them think that they're going to come and present a case and say this has got to happen. It's just research. And we're researching and
So the goal would be to get information, bring it back to you, and then if you feel comfortable to act on that information, to do something with the ordinance, or
That's fair enough.
assign a group or something.
Decide next step after that, right?
Yeah.
I think,
So the question is, do you want them before you at a meeting, or do you want them to be able to come? So what I did was come to the meeting, and if you can't, let me know your thoughts. So I know probably 80-90% of what their thoughts are, but the question is, if that's not good enough, do you want them here? So either they're here to tell you, or they tell me and I report to you. Does that make sense?
I personally would like to have them come here to tell us what they want, because the one next
Yeah.
to them might say, you know, I don't know if we wanna do that though, because of
Mhm.
whatever the reason is. Yeah, and so let's find out from all of them what they really want, what one don't like, what one does like. And then I think it's not really, we can make the recommendation, but I think then any changes in this have to go to the ordinance committee, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Right, but you can advise on how you wanna get that done. The only thing I was asking is, you don't wanna have 5 people that wanna put up a sign, you don't want them to come and then rewrite your ordinance.
No, no.
Right,
No,
and
they're
that's,
just-
and I assume that, but I was just wanting to clarify
No.
that, so, and I think we're
We're
good.
just looking for information
Yeah.
of what they feel.
And why make more work for you when it'd
Yeah.
be just
Right.
easier for
Well,
them
and
to
it's
come?
just an
That's fine.
awareness thing, no official business, just,
Yep, that's fine. Okay,
they really need to be there if they want to
yep.
give
And we'll
input.
find out, because if we find out that we can't get a meeting where they're all here, well, then we'll go from there, and we'll figure it out. Figure out what we
Okay.
have
And
to
of
do.
course, people can write, and they can write something and send it to you, and that can represent what they're thinking. And
So with the mayor being the chair of the committee, then we'll use your discretion a little bit on that too, if people absolutely cannot make it, or, we'll figure it out, we'll figure it out. But, thank you.
Okay. We'll move on then. Number 5, discussion of possible action on the CSM for Mitchell Automotive at 701 North Mill Street.
So you have a handout, it's the legal size sheet of paper, you also have an overview in your packet the overview shows the neighborhood as it sits today. And what you can see is Randy Mitchell's property, 701 North Mill. Basically, his parcel as it existed in the past was just his building. And then just to the west of his building and to the north, there's a access to 3rd Avenue that then gets access to the bigger parcel, which is, it almost looks like it's shaped something like a handgun or a pistol. And then to the west of that, there's another piece of property that's more square in nature. So Randy Mitchell has his building at 701 North Mill. It's on the southeast corner of that corner, I guess. There are 2 other lots that are contiguous to what Randy Mitchell has, or at least they're next door to it. And both of those are owned by real estate builders. And as we had discussed with the conditional use permit, Randy had intended to buy the property straight to the west so that he could put in a parking lot. The result of that land purchase would be this certified survey map, which has been put together and presented to you. Now, what this certified survey map will do, because there's 3 parcels here, one is Randy's building that he's looking to expand on, and 2 other ones belong to real estate builders. This map would reflect the land purchase, so it splits 2 parcels from real estate builders and then combines them with Randy Mitchell's property. What's left then, instead of having 2 parcels, real estate builders would like to create 1 parcel. And they can do that with this certified survey map. It's driven by the fact that Mitchell Automotive and Randy Mitchell had purchased enough property to have a parking lot. But as a result of cutting and joining, essentially 2 properties then are looking at having parcels split and then combined. Where you had 3, you would now have 2. Yeah. So that's the request. Now you will very likely see this again in the future because the zoning and the conditional use have to be amended to cover all of Randy Mitchell's property then. But procedurally, you can't change the zoning until you approve that he has, it's, ideally you do it all at one time, but because you only make recommendations and then the council approves. Last month conditional use, this month we take care of the property lines. Next month then we'll make sure that the rest of the zoning and the conditional use is amended. Does that make sense? It's pretty straightforward. On the pink, again, the pink would be Mitchell Automotive, and then the blue highlighted area would be real estate builders.
I don't see any reason why we wouldn't grant that, but,
Yeah.
because it makes sense to me. If I'm both, they're sitting in
Right.
their seat. Because otherwise you'd be left with 2 with Randy and 2 with real estate, right?
Three with Randy, because Randy's actually buying pieces of 2
Oh, okay.
and then combining them, and then, yeah. It cleans it up here, and it's pretty, so when you look at what it is right now and what it would be in the future with the CSM, the Certified Survey Map, you can see it makes sense, I think. So if you're okay with that, the recommendation then could be to approve the CSM for, you could say 701 North Mill, you could also say 705 North Mill, because technically it includes both addresses, cutting and combining.
I'll make a motion that we approve the CSM for 705 North Mill and 701.
I'll second that.
Any discussion, comments, concerns about it? All in favor then, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion is carried.
Thank you.
Next, we move to number 6, any other matters authorized by law?
I don't have any.
Thank you. Then I ask for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 7 PM.
Second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.